Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at the 10 most dangerous prison inmates in the world. We all know that prisons are one scary place, mainly because of who's in them. We all see bad criminals in newspapers from time to time, but these are the scariest and most dangerous prison inmates you don't even know about. Before we get into it, be sure to subscribe to my new channel, The Crafty. Link's in the top right corner now, check it out. Coming in at number 10, we have The Real Pennywise. We all know the hit book, miniseries, and now movie It. It is about a clown that goes around scaring kids and taking their lives. This is good for a fright, but it's all fiction, right? Well, not exactly, because back in the 1980s, which is when the It movie was set, there was a real-life version of Pennywise. The guy was called John Wayne Gacy, and he was, on the surface, a normal husband and father, but he had a crazy secret life. He began to dress up as a character he called Pogo the Clown. Pogo was supposed to be like Bozo, but as I said, this guy's more like Pennywise. That is because he would volunteer at children's parties. During this time, he would take as many kids as possible and then take their lives. They found missing people in his crawl space inside his house and in a nearby river. He's gone down as one of the most scary and most dangerous criminals to ever exist. Luckily, he's locked up behind bars today, but this still doesn't change how terrifying he really is. I'm pretty sure this guy's put a lot of people off clowns forever. Next up is Lobster Boy. This criminal is very odd and has lived one of the most odd lives ever lived. His real name is Grady Franklin Stiles Jr. He was nicknamed Lobster Boy thanks to a condition that's common in his family. He went into the carnival at the age of 7 as there weren't many things he could do thanks to his hands. He later got married to another carnival performer, but as he aged, he became angry and drank way too much, which caused him to turn evil. He was horrible to his wife and 4 kids, 2 of which had hands like he did. When one of his kids without the odd hand grew up and got married, he became jealous and shot her husband in the face. He went to prison but was released years later. He then began to say he would do the same thing he did to his kid's husband to his wife, as she'd got remarried when he was locked up. But his wife didn't want to take any chances, so she paid another carnival worker $1,500 to take him out. Nobody came to his funeral, and on his grave was just his name and 2 praying hands. Wow, those hands just add insult to injury. Next up is Eyeball Man. This is not only one of the scariest and most dangerous criminals, but he's also one of the scariest looking men on this planet. In 2012, he was arrested for shooting a cop in a bathroom argument. Now that's bad enough, but that isn't what brought him media attention. What brought him all this attention was the scary tattoos he had all over his face. He's obsessed with tattoos and has over 20 just on his face. But his face isn't the only place he has tattoos. He also has a tattooed black eyeball, which is why many people call him Eyeball Man. His real name is Jason Barnum, and he is one scary looking guy. From his Facebook photos, we can also see this guy has tattoos all over his entire body. Not only that, he's got a giant skull tattoo on the top of his head, so maybe he should be called Skull Man instead. This guy looks so scary. Even if he hadn't committed a crime, I think he'd still make this list. I know you shouldn't normally judge a book by its cover, but perhaps this guy is an exception. Coming up next is the Red Ripper. This guy's nickname is the Red Ripper. It's a parody of Jack the Ripper, who took the lives of hundreds of women in England many years ago. And the red part is because this guy's from Rostov in the Soviet Union, which is now Russia. His real name is Andrei Chikatilo, and he took the lives of over 52 women and children over a span of 12 years. He was a suspect in many crimes for many years and was in and out of jail, but there was never enough evidence to convict him of anything serious. Finally, after a police snare in 1990, he was caught and confessed to taking 36 people's lives. But this was found to be an understatement, and he was convicted of doing this to 52 people in 1992. However, it seems the Russian police wanted him to get some karma, so they took his life as a punishment. I'm not trying to make fun of anyone's appearances here either, but this guy looks seriously creepy as well. He just looks like a typical James Bond villain, don't you think? Next up is Monster. Now, there's a very good reason I'm calling this woman a monster. That's because she is so evil it's Hollywood worthy. A movie was made about her and her crimes, and Charlize Theron won many awards for playing her in the movie Monster. Her real name is Aileen Wuornos, and she's one of the only women on this list. But don't worry ladies, this is a good thing, as she is awful. She took the lives of 7 men between the years 1989 and 1990. She unfortunately did have a pretty rough childhood, but that still didn't stop people from being seriously angry when her crimes came to light in 1991. She was arrested and confessed to everything 4 days later. She remained in jail for about 11 more years until she passed away herself thanks to the jury vote. In court, she was acting crazy and freaked out all the jurors and even the judge. The reason she got such a harsh sentence is because she showed absolutely no remorse and said she would happily do it all again. Next up is game show contestant. This is not only one of the most scary and dangerous men ever, but one of the creepiest. His name is Rodney Alcala, and he took the lives of 5 women in the 1970s. But he subsequently admitted to doing this 34 more times. And now cops believe he's done this more than 140 times across the USA after more investigations. But the creepy thing about this guy that he will always be remembered for is appearing on a game show called The Dating Game. And believe it or not, he actually won. He was introduced by the host as a photographer, which is creepy as he would lure his victims, who were mainly models, to him by saying this. In the show, the woman would ask questions to a bunch of guys to determine which guy was the best to go out with according to the audience. One of the women, named Cheryl's question, said, "What's the best time?" He replied, "Nighttime, because night is the only time there is, and night is when things really get good." There were a lot more creepy answers to questions I won't even get into, but in the end, she said he was too creepy to go out with despite him winning. Talk about good judgment. Well done, Cheryl, you quite literally dodged a bullet. Next up is Underwear Strangler. Yeah, as you can tell by this guy's name, he is seriously strange. This guy's real name is Johann Unkundwagen, but he went as Jack. He's Austrian, and ever since his youth, he was in and out of jail for petty theft and things like that. But in 1974, he changed for the worse. He strangled a woman with her own bra until she passed. He then did this to around 40 more women and then moved to LA where he did it some more. He got caught but was somehow freed from prison, but then later went on to do it 4 more times. Finally, the LAPD stopped him and he was given a life sentence. But the creepy thing about this guy is he was writing for magazines during all this, and people didn't even know it was him writing. Imagine your favorite columnist doing something like this. I don't know about you, but that would really freak me out. And even after he went to jail, he was still writing in his cell. He was in prison for around 4 years, but then chose to take his own life by a similar method he used on other people. I guess that's karma for you. Next up is Human Plague. This is a nickname nobody wants to have, unless perhaps you're Mary Malone. This woman holds the all-time record for taking the most lives accidentally. She was a cook in New York to wealthy families and in some offices too, but everywhere she went, a terrible scenario seemed to play out. Within 2 weeks of any place she became a cook at, all of the residents or workers developed serious conditions. And as healthcare back then wasn't so great, a huge amount of people ended up passing away. She was investigated by the police many times as they spotted a very obvious pattern of this happening over 20 times. But Mary denied doing anything to the food and said it was all one big coincidence. But it turned out Mary herself was very ill. She knew this and caused all the food to become bad and give others illnesses. She claimed she had no idea about it. She was treated and then lived freely outside of jail. And the police actually acted like she was a victim because she was sick. But in a diary entry found decades later, she revealed she knew about her condition the entire time. Watch out for your lunch, ladies, kids. Next up is BTK. This guy's real name is Dennis Rader, but the authorities and the media called him BTK. I'm not gonna go into what that means, but suffice to say, it ain't nice. Between 1974 and 1991, he took the lives of at least 10 people in Kansas, USA. Much like the Zodiac, he would taunt and tease the police with letters mocking them for not being able to catch him. But these letters actually led to his eventual arrest in 2005. But the kicker is how they found out the BTK was Dennis. He sent them a floppy disk with a message making fun of the police who couldn't catch him. But from that, they extracted a deleted file about his church, as he was an avid member surprisingly. They then used DNA evidence of him on the floppy disk and at the church and finally tracked him down and arrested him. He was found guilty of 10 people's passings and was sentenced to jail time in 2005. And this criminal is still behind bars today. But don't worry, the judge says he's never coming out. Next up is Hands On. This man is famous as he took over 5,000 lives just by using his hands, hence the nickname Hands On. His real name was Saul Fiklar, and he was around during the Ottoman Empire. He took an average of 4 lives per day for 5 years. But how did he do it with his bare hands? Well, it was all by strangling. Believe it or not, he did this to every person, and it worked every time. He was either very strong or very skilled, but he's definitely a madman. This one is pretty historic, going all the way back to the Ottoman Empire, but there were terrible people back then too, I guess. He had no motive, or at least no known motive, and historians say he would make an amazing athlete today. But to top it all off, he actually worked for the ruler of the Ottoman Empire at the time and was their royal gardener. But he never went after the ruler or anyone of much importance. Maybe that's one tangle he knew he wouldn't have won. As I said guys, be sure to check out my new channel, The Crafty. Head over there right now, and if you comment on the latest Crafty video saying you subscribed, you'll get a shout out in the next top 10s video. Right now on screen is some shout outs from people who have already done this, so be sure to do it yourself. But as always, thanks for watching. Check out some more videos on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.